Good afternoon and welcome to the CFO Lunchtime Live. I'm your host, James Solomons, and thank you for joining us for another live edition in this 38th week of 2024. Yes, that's right, 2025 is just around the corner. Now, there is no denying that in 2024 and the preceding few years, CFOs have been required to do more with less. And this has led CFOs to focus on adopting smart tech to help them overcome this resource challenge. With this challenge not looking to be solved anytime soon, the CFO of 2025 will need to continue to be a tech-savvy leader using advanced tools and automation to drive strategic decisions and organisational performance. Every year, more CFOs rely on sophisticated AP and AR tools to help their finance teams work faster, more efficiently, and with greater productivity than ever before. Today, we are delighted to be joined by Julia Bright, Financial Controller at Quantum Brilliance, Brendan Lucas, Managing Director at Next Dimension Accounting, and ApprovalMax Solution Engineer and Product Expert, Justin Campbell. And over the next 60 minutes, we'll be discussing how CFOs and finance teams can automate their AR and AP functions, manage risk, and enhance visibility, helping their businesses stay forward-thinking in these challenging times. Good afternoon, panel. Thanks for taking the time to be online with us today.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, James. Good afternoon.
Thanks, guys. And now, as this is a live discussion, as always, if anyone from the audience has a burning question or two, please type them into the chat box and we'll attempt to answer them as we go along. Otherwise, we should have some time at the end for Q&A. But it is enough from me. We have lots to cover today, so let's get straight into the questions. Brendan, first one for you. Thanks for joining us again today. Let's set the scene for the discussion. CFOs are in the habit of approving new technologies for other departments, but finance can often be the last to eat, delaying plans to automate and find improvements in their own divisions. What are some of the biggest misconceptions or reasons for delaying? And why do CFOs need to take a serious look at automating their AP and AR tech stack?
Yeah, James, I guess for a minute, outside the finance department, what I find often is they go, right, well, the finance department, that's a fixed cost, it's overheads, who cares? We make it more efficient, it's not going to change the bottom line. Internally in the finance department, the concern often is, am I going to do myself out of a job or do one of my teammates out of a job? Now the reality is that's not the case. From focusing on the last part with the internal finance team, there's so many other things that someone with the knowledge across your business and across your numbers can do rather than make sure the invoice or the bill is typed in correctly. Whether that's looking for cost savings, reviewing their work, looking for errors, analyzing, looking for insights, cash flow forecasting, planning ahead, something that most teams never have time to do because we're always too busy. So that's what I see as a real benefit. And with those things, that will no doubt improve your bottom line one way or another. And I think that's where people often lose sight of it and just look at it simply as a cost and who cares it's there. But there's so much more your finance team can deliver, which is why everyone is looking for the technology edge to get it to have more time to value add to their organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more, and a great way to start today's discussion. Julia, thanks also for joining us. You have a passion for driving change in finance and proven success in enhancing financial business processes. Quantum Brilliance is a quantum computing startup spun out of ANU, consisting of world-class engineers and scientists building the next generation of quantum computing platforms. The business has gone through a lot of growth. Can you share some background on the size and scale and just how manual the finance function was when you joined the business?
Well, thank you, James. Yes, Quantum Brilliance is an exciting business. We built room temperature quantum computers based on diamonds. So wow. Yeah, it sounds really cool. It's very, very technical when you get to the detail. But when it comes to accounting, it is very similar to most other companies, really. But you're right. Automating finance processes is vital to maintaining agile and lean finance function, which is critical for a startup environment. So our goal is to, be as effective as we can within the very limited resources the deep tech startup may have. So when I joined QB, they just moved from Xero to NetSuite. So it was, a bit of a transformation on that side, and the company itself grew from 40 people to 90. So it was a big change. A lot of things were going on, and the finance team was overwhelmed. And on top of that, QB being a deep tech company is rather complex business with many things going on. We have software, we have manufacturing, we have research and development. So we need to tackle all that across 2 companies, 2 countries, 2 time zones. So this is why our key point was to reduce manual work as much as we can and keep track of all the budgets, all the projects, all the expenses and teams across both countries. So this is why it was critical for us to have that transparent tool to keep the resource allocation and reporting and stay compliant. And this is why we were looking for something that can utilize the NetSuite functionality, because it allows for many complex accounting issues, and yet it had to be user-friendly, which NetSuite is not really. So this is why we had to look for something else.
Yeah. And so you described a lot of examples there of things that are being done. And that basically was all manual prior to adopting some new technology.
Well, not really. Our major problem was that it was not user-friendly. Everyone hated it.
Right.
It was so clunky. We tried to automate things, but the way it has been done was so clunky that it took people almost as much time to, scroll through their emails or try to find the right document as it would have for them to enter things manually. So that was our major pain point then.
Which really becomes a manual process in itself, even though there is a piece of tech that's designed to try and make things easier. So that's definitely what we're here to talk about today. And to kick it off in terms of audience polls, we've got 2 today. First one coming up is, what is your biggest pain point within the approval process? You'll see it coming up on the screen and you can make a selection. So delayed approvals, lack of visibility, fear of fraud, too time consuming, or other. So we'll give everybody a few seconds to put their answers down. There's certainly there's some common ones there. You can see the live voting. I love this new live voting there. Delayed approvals, it's taking the lead. It's like a horse race, everyone. Lack of visibility and time consuming, neck and neck for second place. All right, we'll give it a few more seconds. Looks like we're there. Delayed approvals, though, there you go. Delayed approvals, a winner at 50%. Lack of visibility at 17%. Coming in now in third. Fear of fraud, 13%. Coming in second, I feel like an Olympics commentator. Too time consuming, ended up second, getting the silver medal at 90%, and other 1. So definitely probably no surprises there. But over to you, Justin. Thanks for joining us. A fellow ex-Xero, so it's good to catch us every now and then online in these forums. Are those results what you would expect to see?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially the delayed approvals. So, what we encounter with businesses who are using, let's say they're using Xero, is because the approval functionality in Xero is quite limited, um, uh, the people end up using their inbox. People end up using their email inbox or paper-based systems to do things, and of course there's no audit trail of that. There's no, it's very hard to track things down. Creates huge bottlenecks, and then finance, finance, and just the general operations of the business gets delayed because of the need of approvals. And that this can also happen on the AR side too. That a lot of businesses struggle to get their sales invoices and their quotes out in a timely manner for the similar reasons. And the second issue listed there was visibility. So there's that kind of also relates to the inbox things. Things aren't visible if they're in people's inbox. But then there's also an issue of too much visibility. So if you give somebody the ability to approve a bill in Xero, that would give them the ability to see every bill in that organisation, and in for the kind of organisations that the people on the call probably work for and are CFOs at, that's not suitable. So they're definitely not going to be giving that level of access away. But in ApprovalMax, if you're a standard user, you're only seeing the things that you need to approve or you've been added as a watcher on. But sort of as Julie said, in the NetSuite world, you have the reverse problem. Like technically you could do all this stuff in NetSuite, but you need to be a software engineer, have a full-time implementer to, to do it all off. Whereas we're a nice, piece of software you could just plug in and it does it all for you.
Absolutely. And for those on the call, we are ApprovalMax users at Xref too, and I can concur. And this is not a sell for ApprovalMax, but I can concur with what Justin just said. We've been using it for quite a few years now, and exactly those reasons is why we moved to it, because we still use Xero across our entities around the globe. So Julia, you touched on it in your opening comments, and then as I dug a bit deeper, but do you want to go into some detail around what some of the biggest challenges were you were facing in managing AP and AR processes, and what motivated you to automate? Cost saving, efficiency, and I think you already said it was, and as Justin alluded to, too clunky within NetSuite. Give us some detail on what were the biggest challenges.
Yes, we needed a flexible and scalable and cost-efficient solution to just support the ever-changing operating requirements. We have quite a few customized fields in NetSuite to categorize and to add some analytics to the purchases and expenses, and they also drive approvals. And incorporating this into standard NetSuite approvals was not possible, so we had to hire external consultants for implementation. They had to script something. Only they knew what they did there, and it was very, very difficult for us in finance to maintain those scripts or change them.
Yep.
So they were still very clunky to maintain, and all approvals still went through emails after all. So not ideal. And for non-finance roles, NetSuite is not really very user-friendly. So it was people sometimes just lost their way in NetSuite and where they need to go and what they need to look for. So a lot of things like that, and that we felt that we're limited by this NetSuite and we cannot drive the approval flows and we cannot share the data with the users the way we need to. And this is why ApprovalMax was a very good solution for us, because it offers this transparency and flexibility. It is super user-friendly. I worked with ApprovalMax in my previous roles. Actually, QB worked with ApprovalMax when they were on Xero. So this is why it was a good transition for us. Some users were already acquainted with the tool, and they actually welcomed the change. And for us, we had this opportunity to inbuild all those customized fields from NetSuite into our new approvals in ApprovalMax. And that included many things like not just simple departments and expense categories, but also we have projects, we have CapEx type, a few other things that drive approvals. And it was just perfect for us, because even some of the customized NetSuite integrations, they don't offer this flexibility for custom fields in NetSuite.
Yeah,
we really loved it.
Makes sense. Can you share any specific metrics or outcomes that have highlighted the ROI from bringing in ApprovalMax for yourself and for Quantum Brilliance?
Well, we didn't really quantify this, because for us, it was more of a matter of improving user experience, because users absolutely hated the process as it was. So our main focus was to streamline and improve their experience while, avoid delays in approving invoices, chasing approvals, and all this jazz. So, but when you think about it, the implementation of ApprovalMax with NetSuite took me a couple of weeks, and that was just me alone. We didn't need any external consultants, and I think part of the problem was that we were one of the first users of ApprovalMax and NetSuite integration, So there were still a few tweaks that need to have been done, and the ApprovalMax support team was absolutely brilliant. That they spent a few hours with us just to walk us through the implementation process, to help us untangle all these customized fields, pick up all the approval flows within NetSuite, and help us to turn them off and redirect approvals through ApprovalMax. So that was that alone just saved us hours of work and frustration, and all this emailing back and forth. And now we had this option to give users control, which over how they interact with the tool. They can now set up their delegates when they are going on vacations. They can generate their own reporting. They can print, email, purchase orders, bills, whatever, and they set it up the way they want it. So this improved user experience was a dramatic positive change within the company. And then just to add another layer of efficiency, before that in NetSuite, we were only able to drive approval flows by project or department, but we also wanted to have more control for different categories, expense categories like training, software subscriptions. But like consultants quoted us another 5K to reroute the scripts for that. I'm like, oh, okay, no, thank you. And when we moved to ApprovalMax, we were just able to easily reroute some of the approval flows so that some of the expense categories are now with relevant departments, or like, head of HR or head of IT, and they have this full visibility of whatever training is going on in the company. So that's an additional efficiency that now finance do not need to generate those reports for them monthly. They can just have this visibility on their own. And when you think about it, we have over 30 users in ApprovalMax. These are requesters, approvers, and whatnot. And very few of them actually have NetSuite access now because they don't need it, because they have enough information in ApprovalMax. And apart from saving time on improved approval flows and usability, we're saving around 3K a month only on NetSuite licenses that we don't need anymore for those users. Or we can redirect those licenses for people who need, more in-depth level of detail and more analytics and reporting in NetSuite. So we are able to, manage our user access to systems and use them more effectively. So that was a great opportunity for us to, shift costs between the way we use tools.
And
absolutely. Just to highlight sort of how simple it was to set up ApprovalMax, when we had a major organizational overhaul earlier this year, we've changed from a very hierarchical departmental structure to a flat organizational structure with fewer business units. This whole thing, rerouting approval flows, took me a day. And when you think, for 3 entities with 30 different users and 4 approval steps, that's not a lot. It's actually a very good result. And I think that alone would cost us, I don't know, 10K, at least 5K with external NetSuite consultants.
The consultants.
Yes. So this, when it comes to NetSuite, it is like any change, any customization is really expensive, unless you are not a software engineer yourself. But I'm not. Well, unfortunately,
Correct.
I don't know.
Correct. That's it.
So
That's
yes.
it. You need to be very smart to be a NetSuite engineer. And I think that the outcomes you described there are certainly at a nice long list. Prove that getting the right solution in place can have enormous impacts across the business, even if you don't set out to measure those when you kick off. Just that user experience aspect is one key one. So what I want to do now is we've sort of really focused on where the outcomes and potential savings are and time savings. let's start to think about for the next few questions around the considerations in choosing a piece of software to get there and how we evaluate. Brendan, first question to you. What should CFOs look for in terms of scalability and adaptability? And obviously, Julie has given some great examples of outcomes. But what should they be looking at when evaluating automation tools for AR and AP in some of those key areas?
Yeah, James, I think the first one is be aware of where you are at now on your journey of the business and then where you're headed. So that way, then you ideally pick something which is going to last rather than in 2 years' time you're going through the same process because you've gone on your growth journey. When you're then looking at the software, see what its journey's been like. How long's it been around for? If they're new off the block, that's great. It's exciting, but it may not all be working yet. Do you have the time and the interest to be the guinea pig? And is that worthwhile? Or do you want to go with an established player which is already working? I think Julia's touched on it, which big one for her team was around the user experience. We're talking AP and AR. We're not talking about some complex accounting matters. If it doesn't seem simple to use and understand, I'd keep looking because there are lots of simple solutions out there which do really good complex things, but in very simple experience, because in AP and AR, you are looking at non-finance people using these systems. So it needs to be simple. And then with what you decide you do need, and you're looking at different options, consider again whether it's ready now or it's coming soon. It's in the next release. And just, we've all heard of when the next release is coming, so just be cautious of that, as some of that takes a little bit longer than expected.
It's on the roadmap.
Yeah, it's on the roadmap. It's a really big. We don't know where it is, but it's there.
It's all around there.
Yeah, it's like when you forecast interest rates on the stock market. No one ever reflects back to what you said a year ago, whether you were right. And then the last one for me, which again Julia touched on, was just around that whole customization. And if you're going to need, do you need developers to be able to sync this in with your system, or do the one thing you need it to do, or are there just settings that you can just go and adjust? And you've got that the system allows for you to customize to what you need, because again, you've got to factor that into the cost, the user experience. So there's sort of the main things I'd look at in sort of an APAR tool.
Yeah, some good options there, or examples of things that should be looking at. Justin, I want to throw the same question to you. You've been around tech for a long time, putting on your tech solutionist hat. What should CFOs be looking for in terms of that scalability and adaptability? Anything that you want to add to Brendan's answers?
Yeah, I think Brendan answered it well there. Like it should be intuitive and easy to use. That is a really important thing. I guess we kind of touched on it before. Like the scalability is important as well. So like the ability to, like Julie's story there, like the ability to like completely redo your workflows in a day, like that's really quite incredible. Where if you had to deal with consultants and so on, they'd do up a big project plan, and it would be multiple consultation meetings and all that. So for a product to be intuitive and easy to use. Another thing that's really important too is, does it have the mobile functionality as well?
Yep.
Like many of our customers, they really value the mobile app, and sometimes like they use it in weird ways. Like I had one the other day when I was in New Zealand, and what they wanted to do was have an auto approval rule for purchase orders under a certain amount, and they wanted to be at a trade counter and have their staff members at a trade counter be able to produce a purchase order on the spot, just so that they could provide the supplier a purchase order number. And then and that's something I'm sure our developers never anticipated when they built that feature, but but that's how it was used.
That's right. I think it's certainly that scalability and adaptability, but then how can you hack something to work something in a way that maybe the devs didn't think about, and that's always good. Although it might not be that easy to assess that when making a selection. You could ask the engineer, solution engineer, how can we hack your product to make it work in ways that we never use. But that like that, you want to ask your potential provider, how are people using it in a way that wasn't intended? Because quite often that can elicit some answers that you as someone wanting to select new software could go, oh yeah, that's actually quite useful. That definitely is a good one.
And I think, James, the key part with that
Go on,
is then to go and talk to those people as well, so you hear it firsthand.
Yeah.
Because the users of the
Get the
system will give you
references.
great insights, particularly if you're doing those little bit those left field uses of the system. I think that's really important.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's good to get the references, regardless of the size and scale of the product you're putting in. Speaking to those that are using it is really good. Julia, people don't always like change. As an organisation full of academics, engineers, and scientists, did you face any pushback from any parts of the business when you're bringing in your new system?
No. So everyone hated NetSuite so much that they were really, really happy for the change. And because they knew ApprovalMax from their previous experience, it was an easy change for us, really. The transition was smooth. We've had a few training sessions. We put together a few manuals just, to explain clearly what text codes to use, what expense categories to use when. And for some of the approval flows, you can actually make comments in ApprovalMax templates where people can see straight away what needs to be done. So in this case, the learning curve was really very short. I think people got used to it within a week because it's so intuitive as well. And I guess the big buy-in was because people took control of their settings. They could set up delegates. Sometimes they can redirect the approval flows if they don't feel that this is their piece to approve. You can see all the comments, all the details in one place. Everyone can follow. And with the time difference, it is super important that people leave comments on one side and then it comes through on the other side. So for us, user buy-in was a big deal, and hence with all this visibility and transparency and user friendliness, it was really easy for us to roll out this particular thing, this particular tool.
Yeah, that's always a plus around that, as you say, that user friendly UI. You mentioned earlier, Julia, global business. Do you face challenges? And I think you might have just touched on it. Do you face challenges around remote or decentralized approval workflows? How do you ensure that decision making is not delayed, especially given that was the number one reason that people are frustrated with in our poll?
Yeah, that's a great question because even though we do have entities in different countries, but the teams themselves are not structured around entities. So the manager may be in Australia, but the team is in Germany and vice versa. So this is why having this independency of time zones was critical for us. So, and the good thing about ApprovalMax is that, you can set up the approval in a way where once it is approved, the purchase order is emailed to the vendor automatically. You don't need to wait for it. You don't need to post it manually or whatever. So like when a requester in Germany asks for a purchase, then the manager in Australia approves it. It goes automatically to Japan and it still hits them within their working hours. And this is like a real life example from our company. And that made things so much smoother. And then you still have all this track record in one place where you can follow what happened to the invoice. We can see it either from NetSuite side or from ApprovalMax side, whatever is your preference.
Yeah.
And I guess on top of that, we were able to each user has this flexibility, to tweak their emails, to tweak their templates a little bit, so they can, sometimes they can use this personalized touch, which was also important, which was why people wanted to email their purchase orders in the first place. And now it can all be done. And managers don't need to ask their, employees or, their team what happened. They can just see it straight away, and they don't need to waste those overlapping couple of hours a day on just discussing POs. That was a great thing for us.
Yeah, that audit trail that sits in each of those requests in ApprovalMax. Yeah, we're a publicly listed company, and that was gold for our auditors to see. And you can't change it, you can't unlock it. It's locked down, and that's certainly one thing that we do love, because it tells a very, very accurate story of how that has gone through the system. Justin, in terms of the integration processes, can you share some common challenges faced during ERP and APAR automation integrations, and how can people mitigate some of these challenges?
Yeah, so on the integration side, that's very easy. So, like with connecting it to say a Xero file, it's like clicking like a few buttons. So, and then we pull all the account codes, the suppliers, contacts, tracking categories, pull everything through. On NetSuite, it's a little bit more involved. You have to create like a user profile and do a few things like that. But we'll work with you on that and do it. So that part, either way, that part's really easy. The hard part sometimes is where people don't have a properly thought out delegated financial authority,
Mm-hmm.
and instead their process was that there was like one person who just knew who needed to approve everything,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they'll, instead of wanting to automate their workflows, they'll want to be able to say for every single approval, this needs to go, here, this, and which is, we can technically do that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not how the product is really meant to be used. So really thinking about what your process should be, and this is where probably the NetSuite does have an advantage, is what Julie said, that you get beyond just tracking categories and account codes and suppliers, that you can have custom fields in NetSuite, which might actually allow more options for automating your approval workflows.
Yeah, yeah. Brendan, same question to you. Any common challenges you see during that ERP and APAR automation integration process?
Look, I think we've touched on a few things before. I think, user engagement, change management, standard with any sort of tech change, and bringing them, and the good thing is, something like an ApprovalMax, it's pretty easy to get them on board and go, this is much easier than what we were doing before. And then I think, depending on some systems, I had a couple of clients, even with something as simple as Xero and ApprovalMax, they just set up a free trial, connected to ApprovalMax, got comfortable, then went live. So sometimes just doing that little bit of homework, working out the bugs before you involve everyone, that way then you find, and usually it's not a bug of the system, it's just you didn't think of that scenario, which comes to Justin's point of, well, what is your delegation, who approves what? If we get that clear, we're fine. If we miss half a dozen account codes or however we're structuring it, well, you're gonna have a problem regardless of which system you use.
Yeah, exactly. Justin, how do you handle data migration from legacy systems to an ERP system as you go through the implementation of these new tools?
Yeah, so because we connect up to the accounting software, and that is the single source of truth, there really isn't much in the way of data migration,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just going to come. Now, there might be, as part of your implementation, moving from Xero to NetSuite, but that's not really our area.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but all of those things just get pulled from the accounting software. So the biggest thing you've really got to do is just build those approval
Yep.
workflows. That's really the only thing you need to do when setting up ApprovalMax, and inviting new users, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, over 150 people online today, and I've got a very specific poll for you. The answers won't come up on the screen, but are you interested to learn more about ApprovalMax? Pop your answer in. If you pick yes, you're going to get a call. If you tick no, you're probably going to get a call. And if you tick maybe, you're going to get a call too, because that's how it works. But certainly, it'd be good to get an idea for our great sponsors today of the interest, and certainly the outcomes already discussed, and we've still got the rest of this webinar to go, are certainly going to ensure that you have a look at it, because again, I'm an ApprovalMax user, and it's been a great product in our suite of tools. So I'd thoroughly recommend you have a look at it, whether you're at Xero, NetSuite, or other programs. So we'll get back to the questions now. Some very specific questions here for you, Julia. How do you see AP and AR automation contributing to your overall financial strategy and longer term goals? Has it shifted the way you manage cash flow or working capital?
Well, in a complex business like ours, where you don't have any background and you can't really understand the invoices you're looking at, because it's some diamonds, it's some polishing, it's some God knows what these people are buying. So this is why having this peace of mind, just that we're paying for things that the company really needs, that the purchase or the expense has gone through a thorough and well thought process of approval, really gives me confidence to manage my payables. I know that if we're buying diamonds, well, that's because we really need diamonds as a company, not someone is getting engaged. So this is why I'm really now that I have this confidence, the payables and paying of bills is very smooth. We just want to make sure that everything is up to date. We pull the bills and we just pay them, and that's it. And that actually allowed us to concentrate on other things. So now we're looking at, okay, how does it match to the budget? How do we help teams to get better data? How do we split things differently? So we really have time to concentrate on other things that add value to business units and business, decision makers, rather than simply accountants and, being compliant with whatever tax requirements. So this is why, I guess, from the cash flow perspective, we because we know that we have this thorough process in the background, the payables go through much quicker. We have to review less, and every reviewer and whoever releases the payments has spends just less time reviewing the actual bills. So I guess that was and when it comes to audits, it is so easy. You just share those audit trails with them, and you don't need to worry. Like I feel so much more comfortable going through the audits now, because I know it's all there.
Yeah, it's certainly that compliance aspect is and reduction errors is certainly a key reason for many to implement, but also would be a key outcome that many might not consider as part of their key. I've used key a few times there. That's one of their main reasons for bringing in something like that. My wife would like to work at your place, Julia. She loves diamonds. She used to work in the jewelry trade, so she was buying and playing with diamonds all day, and they were for engagement rings. But I do agree, that confidence that if you've got the right approvals, you don't need to ask, why is that VVS1 2-carat diamond in a cushion cut being purchased? You just know that somebody has approved it and it's needed for some piece of equipment on your room temperature computer. I'll show my knowledge of diamonds there. Brendan, great insights, as I said there, from Julia. Can you share any other success stories where AP AR has improved cash flow workflows or provided some unexpected benefits, maybe like Justin had described a little earlier?
Yeah, thanks, James. Look, for us, where we sort of assist our clients with an advisory space around that cash flow planning is key, where we can help, because we can see everything now. If they're using Xero, and we can log in and we can see what's approved and what's not approved. Where before we didn't know what wasn't approved, because it was in an inbox or a Slack message or a desk when people used to work from the office, and you never knew what you're actually sitting on. So that's definitely helped with a number of our clients. The big one for me is around empowering your management team. So getting them to take accountability for their profit and loss and their business unit or division, or however you dissect your business. That's been a big one that I've seen across a number of clients, where the pressure's not all on the CEO or CFO to manage, because now They're approving their bills. They know what's hit their P&L. They can't say they didn't know about it because they were the one that signed off on it. So I've made that made a difference to actual business operations. I think we've already touched on the benefit of getting people out of an accounting system that don't need to be in there, whether that's from stuff they don't need to know or potentially see, or if you're going to save on licensing costs. So that's a big one. And then, CFOs, what we need to do, we need to report on month end. We don't like looking backwards, but we've got to do it. But you can then go, you know what, I'm going to shut off on the 2nd or 3rd. It's not approved. Don't care. I'll raise an accrual. I know what it is. I got my summary, and I can start looking forward again, where you couldn't close off as early because you didn't know how much to accrue for and what bills were waiting. So again, we're doing multiple month ends for clients, so that ability to be able to cut off earlier and just move on from month end is a real benefit that I've seen for our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that empowering part is critical, because it's often the key part of finance teams is to get the hands of systems, or get financials in the hands of their teams. And as Julia said earlier, if you're not a finance person, something like robust an ERP like NetSuite can be a bit of a minefield, even finance people themselves. And so you want to be able to get that in their hands. You want them to take control of those decisions. You want them to know that through the approvals that the diamonds that they bought were legit, and they're not going to get challenged on it. So it builds a level of confidence across the business at both ends. So I think that is quite important. Justin, a question from the audience, and then I've got another question for you after that. Is ApprovalMax going to integrate with MyOb as well as Xero? Is this on the development roadmap? Is it on the roadmap, Justin?
Not likely. I've asked the question internally, and I think it's the problem is there's issues with the API, and then you kind of, it's a shrinking market, and all of those reasons.
No, fair enough. It's a better answer than saying it's on the roadmap, but we don't know when. So there's that answer. And Justin, a question for you around and comparing to other AP and AR solutions. What distinguishes ApprovalMax from? And I've had to be careful. We call it AP Max internally, just because that's how we do it. And a few times I've caught myself as I'm about to say it, and I've called it ApprovalMax. But what distinguishes ApprovalMax from other AP and AR solutions on the market at the moment?
Yeah, well, I think the hints in the name is like the approvals, is that the heart of what we do is approvals, whereas like, we don't have many what you'd consider real direct competitors. You have apps who might have been payment solutions who have like tacked on some kind of approval functionality to their product, or maybe they're in the OCR business and they've tacked on some basic approval. But our product is built around making approvals as efficient as possible, and then on a second tier of that, we've added in financial controls like budget checking, bill to purchase order matching, and things like that. So that we don't have many like direct competitors, but and I heard a point made recently, in the enterprise space, where we're quite different is, like, we let you create a trial, and it's actually pretty easy just to read the notes and set it up. But like, we'd help you with that in the trial period anyway at no cost. But like, you could actually try out ApprovalMax and give it a go and see if it works for you. We're not going to lock you into we're not, because I guess our DNA is really that Xero ecosystem originally. So we kind of have that approach, whereas in the enterprise space, they're probably got to try to lock you into some kind of consultative relationship. And,
That's right. Now, again, I promise people I'm not on the hook here for ApprovalMax today, but one of the key things that I found a recent update is the ability to raise, this is linking into Xero, I'm not sure if it's the same for NetSuite, but the ability to raise manual journals for approval.
Yes.
You know, you can do draft journals in Xero, but again, you know, to be able to do that and have that audit trail, we get asked that all the time by our auditors, who's reviewed that journal, who's approved that journal. That's been fantastic. And we also use Airwallex. We haven't turned it on, but Airwallex also has a nice feed into ApprovalMax now as well in terms of payment uploads. So again, lots of good things happening in the space. And again, it was that approval, as you said, Justin, I think is one of the key differentiators for the product itself is that audit trail, and we use it in many ways that it's not intended to be done or what you would think it would be done, but it certainly gives us that audit trail and that approval process that certainly helps us when we get to the end of our financial reporting periods. Brendan, we hear a lot about fraud in the CFO Lunchtime Live and the wider CFO Magazine events. It's a threat facing all finance teams, and especially around invoices and payments. How can CFOs manage data security and fraud prevention in an automated AP and AR system?
So for me, the main thing is use the system. So don't work outside the system. So I've seen before, oh no, we had to make that payment, so we just did it. Yeah, we just did it. So hang on, but we haven't gone through the approval process. Because once you start to say that's okay, then you open up the opportunity that someone thinks that silly text message or email about that urgent payment might actually be legitimate, which is, we know, one way that scammers try to get in. So if you do everything through the system, you're cutting off that as a possibility for your team to respond to. I think Justin's talked a lot about the approval workflows and setting that up right. Like, the whole benefit of ApprovalMax is you can have an approval matrix with multiple people involved. So make sure, however you set up your processes, from the approvals through to payments, different people involved. Utilize the system, utilize your team, because often most of the stories that come out around fraud is because one person had too much responsibility and opportunity across the finance team. So that, segregation of duties, it's 101, but it's a good reminder. And then simple things as well around that ApprovalMax. Then who has administrator access? Don't overplay that card. Everyone doesn't need it, because that's your keys, right? Don't give everyone a set of keys to the system. As well, two-factor authentication. Again, this is a great system, but if you have a very simple password and you let someone in, well, then you've lost. Yeah. So again, utilize those simple security tools. Are sort of what I look to use for my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in regards to that payments fraud, if it's getting to that end and the money's going out, there hasn't been enough done along the way to make sure it doesn't get to that point. Even though, as we know, people colluding can get around those things. If you've got enough of those checkpoints, and you can, in a good system, bring in more because it's still efficient, then you certainly limit the chance of things like that happening, which can be quite catastrophic, as we've seen around the world in recent times, particularly in the deep fakes in Hong Kong. Julia, again, thank you for sharing your journey with us today. One question we do like to always ask, particularly around technology adoption, with the benefit of hindsight, would you be doing anything differently second time around?
I guess if I had to choose, I would probably start using ApprovalMax earlier, before we set up all those NetSuite approvals, realized they didn't work, and then had to, go through ApprovalMax regardless. I'm not sure if ApprovalMax integration existed at that time, but yeah. Synchronizing with ApprovalMax brought up a few old inefficiencies within NetSuite that we fixed, and now that we have the working system, we're looking to improve, the way the workflows work. Can we make them flatter? Can we simplify things? Can we make them more efficient? But you have to have this solid ground, something to back on, to build on that from there. I guess we're trying to implement new things. First, we only used categories like expenses. Now we're adding items on top of that. But no, I never regretted using this particular tool after all.
No, it
Yeah,
certainly
ApprovalMax has
doesn't
been great.
seem that way. In terms of CFOs that might be hesitant, Julia, about automating their AR and AP function, what are some key pieces of advice that you would give to sort of encourage them to be thinking about getting it into their finance tech stack?
Oh, definitely do not hesitate. I mean, automation in this current environment is crucial. And for us in a company that grows so fast, I have much more confidence. I'm less stressed about the growth because I know that my tools are scalable and I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to hire another 3 accountants to just process bills or purchase orders. So this is why I have this peace of mind to support the business and not be biased against the growth just from a professional point of view. And we've had a few failed implementations with other tools, but
Mm-hmm.
it never stopped me from trying other things because tools and software they get new features, they evolve all the time, and really you rather fail quickly and move on than
Mm-hmm.
just get slowly buried under the amount of invoices, purchase orders, and all errors after all. So this is why I think it is critical to look out what's available on the market, how you can make things differently within your team, and just help push your business towards the growth, and still the directors and shareholders have this peace of mind that their resources, the company resources, are under control, they're all safeguarded, and they don't need to worry that much about technical things, and they want to concentrate on strategy and finding new markets or new products. They don't
Yeah,
need to worry about growth that much really now.
yeah,
We've got them
that's right.
covered here.
Well, that's right. I think if those in those positions are worried about where the money's being spent, and spending head head time and head thinking time on those sorts of areas, that they don't have time to think about strategy. So we're getting those things in place certainly does give a level of confidence across the business, and it does allow you to move on and be thinking about the strategy and thinking about the future. It's been a fantastic discussion today. We've certainly covered a lot of ground. I've got one last question for each of you, and it's really looking towards the future. First one for you, Julia. Finance transformation never has an endpoint, particularly these days with the ecosystem in the API world and everything online. There's always something shiny and new coming along. I'm the worst for wanting to pick up the new shiny app and put it into the business. So it never ends. Um, what additional opportunities for automation do you foresee in finance beyond AP and AR? What's on your finance tech roadmap? Are you looking at automating areas further, in such as payroll, budgeting, forecasting? What else is on your plan now that this is bedded down and you've got time to think about where you can automate elsewhere?
Yeah, true. Finance transformation is a constant process, never ending. And after accounts payable, we started working on expense reporting, which was, again, far from ideal in NetSuite. But currently, with this new business unit structure, we really want to concentrate on automating and streamlining capital allocation, budgeting, forecasting, so that we allow users to collaborate, to play with different scenarios, to see the different outcomes of their inputs. So that would be one thing. Payroll, HR management is always a big thing in a global company because they're very well, okay, I don't think there are any tools that cover all bases for each country and, give you
Yeah,
this opportunity to stay compliant in terms of HR and payroll.
that's
But yeah,
right.
I'm optimistic with the rise of AI and software as a service companies. I think there should be more opportunities coming up to automate, and, I hope the cost will be reasonable there as well.
Well, that's
So
it. I
that's my
think
plan.
there's your plan. There's plenty to do, and there's always something new to look at or improvements. And then, like I said earlier, even the existing tools in your tech stack come out with new features, which forces you to think, how can we make that work for us? Brendan, what's your top piece of advice for finance leaders looking to enhance their AP and AR tech stack, or top couple pieces of advice?
Yeah. So I think the main one for me is be in a position where you're ready to try something out. So to me, so that means you understand what your approval workflows already look like, and you're happy with those, or what you need to change. And realistically, if you don't have systems, you should still have some sort of approval matrix and process in place anyway. So I think that's my number one thing. Get that ready, because then when you find something you want to try, you already know how you want to set it up. Where I think, as Justin touched on before, that some of them slows up people getting on board because they haven't actually thought that through. So I think that's really important. And then just go out there and try one, whether it's ApprovalMax or something else. Get in there and have a look and just test it out. And then I think you'll start to experience some of the benefits that Julia has, and you'll put the accelerator down, and then you'll get that done, and you'll look to the next opportunity, because you need to free yourself and your team up, and technology is the best way, is the enabler here.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And Justin, final word from yourself. We could not go a lunchtime live in 2024 without talking about AI. And so the question to you, the future of AP and AR, do you expect AI or advanced analytics to enhance the AP and AR automation over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, look, I think with the rise of large language models, I can see your ability to talk in plain English to your accounting software and your your accounts payable, accounts receivable, and ask it questions. And maybe it'll get better at noticing patterns and things that you might not see when you're approving a single invoice, but it might start to notice patterns and things. So I could see in like the 3 to 5 year time frame, it make those things appearing. But I am a little bit cynical on it, because I have seen. I do remember a chatbot being announced at a XeroCon, and nothing much came of that. So but automation has been around a very long time now, like over 15 years in the accounting space. So, but it will continue to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a wait and see. AI is touching a lot of things, and AI touches a lot of things that we use and we don't really know it. Obviously, ChatGPT brought it to the fore, but certainly, once the experts get into different areas, they're going to find ways to improve things, and it may not change it much, or it may revolutionize it, but it's certainly a wait and see in many of these cases. And that does bring us to the end of today's Lunchtime Live. Sincere thanks to our panelists, Julia Bright, Brendan Lucas, and Justin Campbell, for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us today. So thanks, panel.
Thank you for having
Thanks,
us.
everyone.
Thanks for having
Bye.
us.
Thank you also to ApprovalMax for their support with today's event. And thanks to everyone who's tuned in today from around Australia and New Zealand. Full copy of the recording will be made available later this afternoon, emailed to you. But until next time, I am James Solomons, and I look forward to bringing you another insightful discussion on the next CFO Magazine Lunchtime Live. Enjoy the rest of your day.